There we go. Welcome back. But before we begin, prepare your ears to listen and your heart to receive as you take in the words that look to change lives, renew hearts, and open minds. Welcome to the Door Expansion, where I am your host, Mar Anthony Hubbard. I am the founding owner of Speak to My Heart Life Coaching. And for everybody who don't know, a life coach, my mission as a life coach is to help you become a better version of yourself by helping you achieve the goals in which you set for yourself. So there's no thrill, no games, no anything like that. Whatever your goals are, that's what I'm here for. I'm your accountability partner more than anything. Today, I have my co-host, Miss Stephanie Hollins Passmore, who's a certified marriage and family therapist and the owner and founder of the Narrative Shift LLC. And I'll let her to find out what her job is as a counselor and what she can do for you.
Awesome. Good evening. Life is not always easy. Sometimes even the strongest people among us need a little bit of help to work through some of life's more challenging problems. Everyone has battles to fight and hurdles to overcome at some point. So, whether you struggle with anxiety, depression, self esteem, or any other issue, you should know that there is a hope for a better tomorrow.
Boom. All right. So we welcome back
And as a
to
mental health guy, help people do. Is there a little lag
yeah,
today?
there was a lag in there.
Okay.
You can go ahead and finish.
Yeah, we're going to roll with it. Yeah.
So we're gonna welcome back Mr. Nicholas Hughes and Miss Andrella Pusher to the show. Last week, our show was very powerful, and we had some great feedback during and after the show. So I'm gonna just let them introduce themselves. So, Mr. Nick, give us a little short bio, and then pass it over to Andrella for she can give hers.
Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Hughes again, entrepreneur out of Hampton Roads. Here to talk about real estate, financial planning, and getting the tools together for you to get together to make those transitions to home ownership and plan for retirement.
Good evening. My name is Andrella Boucher. I am a licensed realtor out of the state of South Carolina. I'm also a retired Navy chief. I was a nuclear engineer in my past life before I grew up and started this thing we call adulting. And I'm here to talk about financial literacy and how that ties into mental health, in addition to real estate and winning where you are in life.
All right, and I like how you pronounce your name the correct way, and I don't know why you never mentioned it to me that I was saying it wrong. But that's cool. I got it now. Couche. There was no accent marks on there. At least in my name, I got the apostrophe in there, so I didn't see all that. Try to be fancy and all. So we just jump into it, and so there is a such thing as sellers and buyers market, right? And so in the sellers market, and I'm just doing a little short recap for everybody who probably didn't listen to the last week's show, and then the ones who's brand new to this whole thing. So in a seller's market, that means that anyone selling a home right now is getting their asking costs, and in some instances a little bit more. And last week, both of you mentioned how the shortage of homes is what is driving this market up. But we all know that this won't last for long. So Nick, what advice would you give our listeners if they were the sellers right now?
If they're the sellers, take the highest and best offer. Make sure your house is presentable, it's actually ready. If your house is staged well, if it shows well, if it's priced correctly, it's gonna sell. Um, Make sure you pay attention to your realtor, pay attention to your agent, listen to your agent, and take the advice of the agent. They're not gonna steer you in the wrong direction.
Hey, Nick, before I go into the buyer's part with Andrella, so I'm gonna give you my experience.
All right, go ahead.
I go to this house. Well, I went to a couple houses. One house was so bad on the inside. I came out of there coughing, wheezing, sniffling. I, I guess I was. That's when I found out I was really allergic to cats because I just had stuff all going on the side of me, and it looked like they didn't think about preparing the house. I went into another house. They just had junk everywhere. It was just like, well, y'all are trying to sell this, right? I mean, you go in the backyard. They had two big dogs out back in the back. You would think they would pick the poo up in the back, but all that stuff still in the backyard. Uh, I went to another house.
What?
Yeah, and is it common for the seller to be at the house whenever people are coming there and getting the house shown?
No. So what should have happened is the agent should have whoever they had represent them as far as the agent or brokerage. They usually give out a check sheet, right? And it lists and details all the things that need to happen to the house in order for it to come to the market and actually sell. And I tell people if you have things in your house that you haven't moved in more than a year, you need to get rid of it. Like 80% of selling your property is just staging it. Even if you don't have the best furniture, if people can see contrast and lines, they'll pick up and do what they want to do to the house once they purchase it. But if you have junk clutter and you were saying like cat hair and dander and things like that, that really detracts from a person actually wanting to take that house serious. And especially like if they're gonna put money into it or gonna live there. I tell anybody like every house can be sold. It's just a matter of identifying the problem areas and then correcting those. Once you can correct that, then the house will sell.
Yeah, whenever I walk through there, I mean the cats were still out. The cats jumping all on the kitchen table, all around the thing, and I'm just like, what is going on? And the bad thing about it was we had a very professional agent that was showing us this house, but she went to turn a light on, and I actually seen her like grab a napkin or something to flip this light switch because she was like, I don't even want to touch this. And you
Yeah.
know, and it actually started at the front door because she looked at the front door and she was like, okay. And when she opened it and the smells came out of there, and I'm just like, this is bad.
Yeah,
So
I had a house similar like that in Norfolk. I showed a client, and there were cats like pretty much everywhere as well. But what got him was the fact that someone had shot. There was a bullet that had went through the window, and they didn't get it fixed. So he was like, I could have somebody professionally clean the house. He was like, but that right there, I
yeah,
mean, the window, it wasn't like the window was duct tape. So they were like, nah, let's just go. And I was like, okay, hey, let's go. But
that
it
that
happened,
the broken window effect really in broken window effect on that one right there.
basically.
Yeah, but then I also mentioned about the lady. She was at home whenever we came to look at the house, and she had like two little chihuahuas running around the house. There was a big spill on the carpet in there, and she following us as we going through the house with the agent, and she was like, "Oh, don't worry about the carpet. I'm gonna get the carpet clean." And I'm like, "Okay, then that's all good and fine, but what about all the junk that you got in this house? What are you gonna do? The walls are dirty, all this other stuff." So I mean, I'm just saying this. Whenever we talk about sellers, make your stuff look presentable. I mean, I understand we
Facts.
could be the seller's market, and there's a lot of houses that's not listed on there that people are trying to buy. But at the same time, this is your hard-earned money that you spending right now, and nobody. I don't want nobody else's trash. So,
Facts. But there's a home out there for everybody. So
true.
like you may see it as trash, and then somebody might say, well, you know what, I can do this, I'll do that. Now I know someone who bought a house that had 14 people in there, a goat, two pigs, and like two dogs. And they bought that house. And if you walked into the house, I promise you, you would never known if they didn't tell you that, you would have never known that that existed. So it could work either way. I mean, the house was beautiful. They don't even own the house no more. They live in a whole nother state. But I remember the wife telling me, and I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, just go back and look at the pictures. And I was like, oh wow. And now
Wow.
now the owner that owns the house, they've added on to the property as well. So I mean, it could work either way. Some people are looking for a deal, right? But generally, like right now, you want to make sure your house, if you want to get top dollar for your house, you got to make sure at least that it shows well.
Gotcha. Well, Andrella, what would you say to the buyers in this instance, being in the in the market that we in?
To the buyers, can you guys hear me? I'm on a headset.
Yeah, we can.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. To the buyers in today's market, I would say respect where you are in life, respect what your finances can get you, right? There's a lot of some of the analysts are calling it impulse buying, right? We were talking offline once about sensationalism and how the hype sometimes has people to take action that they might not have normally taken, right? So to those buyers that are looking to buy, unless you're in a situation where you absolutely have to buy right now, respect your dollar. A lot of people are doing things like spending 10,000, 15, $25,000 over, and unless the realtor is educating them on what's the end plan, right? In the military, when I transferred in September or March of 2010, I knew that in September of 2013 I was going to have to leave, right? So the home buyer may say, I know that in 2 years we're trying to expand our family, right? So for that person, buying a townhouse might not be the thing to do. Right now we're having a shortage of homes, and new construction homes are taking a long time. And for whatever reason, we have some new townhouse communities that are popping up, and people are paying almost $300,000 for townhouses. So unless their realtors are giving them the true education on how much they should pay for a two-story apartment and what's their end strategy, like they may outgrow that space in a year. They may outgrow that space in 2 years, or they may be transitioning to the area and they know that they're going to need to resell their house in 3 years. So whoever it is that they're working with, I just pray that people choose a realtor that cares more about the client, than the transaction, because you can definitely crunch the numbers and give them an estimate of what it would look like after 3 years in the home, what it would look like after 5 years in the home, because people don't realize, but you can be upside down in the house and not even afford to be able to sell. You know,
Facts.
a friend of mine recently was talking about how his brother, him and the brother and the brother's wife sold the house after 8 years. They didn't make a dime. They actually had to put money with it to cover the sale of the home, right? Because sellers cover the commission. Now, my question would be, for those buyers, did they overpay? Did they buy in an area where the property value just wasn't going up or didn't hold? You know, a lot of people don't understand, sometimes some of the nuances of a purchase or the strength of an HOA. People don't want to be told, well, I can't leave my trash can outside to the road for 2 days, or if I want to work on cars, I want to have 4 cars in front. Well, guess what? When you're not in an HOA, you're going to have challenges like, who knows what's going to happen to the property value of a house. And if you want your property value to stay up, well, then you got to take those things into consideration. So making sure that you're educated all the way around the board is key. It's key, because people are definitely overpaying. So unless you absolutely have to do it right now, if your money can't get you what you want, don't overpay. The tape, like Karma said, Karma always rounds the block. We're not going to be in a seller's market forever. But when we switch back to a buyer's market, there's going to be different things, different sort of challenges. So just respect your dollar.
Absolutely. I concur.
So, Nick, last week you mentioned about a financial portfolio. So, could you give us a brief description of what that entails and how does one credit play into this?
All right. So I know many people that may not own homes, but they've already started their financial portfolio and probably don't even know it and probably don't realize that they've done that. So it's a series of a couple of things. Number one, you always want to make sure your credit is where it needs to be. Right now, we talked about debt to income, and basically what that is how much money you have going out versus how much money you have going in per month. So that's a calculation that the banks are like with anything, whether you're buying a house, a car, getting credit cards, they're going to look at that. So ideally, you want to be between 22 and 30% on your DTI to make sure that it's low, right? You want to keep it low, and that's rent, car note, loans, credit cards. You want to keep that stuff down low, right? We all know the importance of having a healthy credit history. Healthy credit. Some of the things I don't never advise people to do is finance furniture. Like that's like one of the worst things you could do is finance a piece of furniture. You finance it for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, you be ready to buy some more furniture. People do it all the time. I don't know why, but people do that.
Don't talk
Um,
about me.
another
Don't talk about me.
another thing. So once you have your credit together, now let's talk about creating your own bank and being your own little bank. Now, when I say that, I'm not necessarily saying talking about life insurance because life insurance is part of your wealth strategy too, but that's a death benefit, and that's what you're going to leave to your family once they die. So I'm not talking about a whole life insurance policy or IUL policy. I'm talking about um, creating enough stuff and being a bank. So this is how a bank works. You take your money, you take it to a bank, you put your money in the bank. The bank say, okay, thank you for your cash, right? For every $1 of debt, for every $1 that's put into the bank, $9 of debt is produced. We know that, right? So what the bank does, take your money, they go to the stock market and they invest your money into the market. So they get their money at 16 or 20%, and then they get their cut and they turn around and give you 1% or 0.6% or whatever the bank going rate is for a savings account. Now I know growing up, many of us was told, hey, put your money in the bank, put it in a savings account, make sure you always have a savings for a rainy day. That's kind of true, right? You do need emergency cash spending money, but you also need money that you are playing in the market, right? You need that currency, that flow of money that's playing because money don't like to be bored, right? If you have your money sitting there, eventually you're gonna end up spending it because something's gonna happen. You're gonna end up spending it on something that happened. So one thing you can do if you have an IRA or you have a mutual fund, non-qualified mutual fund, or you have 401k, you should be maximizing that. I don't care if you have a 401k, your wife has a 401k, y'all need to be maximizing that 401k, especially if they're going to be with that 401k at your job, if they're going to be matching a certain amount of a percentage. So you want to be at least doing at least 16 or 20%. Now I know y'all gonna say, hey, I ain't got 16 or 20%. Yes, you do. Look around your house. I guarantee you're gonna find that 16 and 20%. Go to your bank account, look around your house. I bet you're gonna find it. I promise you, you'll find it. Like I tell people this all the time. Yo, I can always tell who spends what, where their money going. I love sneakers. Like I like sneakers, so I know if I see a fresh pair of sneakers, I'm probably gonna buy them. I'm probably gonna buy two pairs because my wife, I want to match with my wife, so I'm probably gonna buy two pairs. And I'm hoping I can get on retail and I'll pay resale because if I gotta pay resale, then I gotta pay more. So guess what? I gotta have an automatic investment plan because if I say I'm gonna put this amount of money in the bank and I don't do it because I slip up to and I go buy some sneakers, and guess what? I'm messing up. So my stuff is on auto. Well, excuse me, our stuff is on auto. Right? We have a set amount of money that goes to our mutual fund every month. And then here's the cool thing. So we also own stock as well. The beauty about this is once you become an owner, because it's all about ownership, now you can leverage the equity off your stock without cashing them out to give yourself a loan. So you could basically pay yourself a loan, give yourself a loan on your money based on the ownership of shares that you have to go take care of the things that you need to go take care of. So let's say you want to get in that house flipping. This is just a scenario. You want to flip a house, right? You don't know how to flip the house, but guess what? You may have a friend that's in the flipping. They do like 10, 15 flips a year. He said, hey, man, you want to come into this flip? Hey, I need $10,000. Okay, cool. Instead of trying to hustle up, trying to get that 10,000, you can go to your 401k, right? Now you're going to be, now because you're using this for a house, or you can go to your mutual fund, you can pull that $10,000 out. You can go take that money, put in, go on with his flip. You get a hard money loan for the property, the repairs, and the interest that you're gonna pay back. Right? Y'all rehab the house. Right? The house sells for its price. You take your initial investment. You put your money back. You put your money back. You start over. Now you got working capital because you worked on that flip. That's just one scenario. Like you can literally take your money and use it. Now you have to pay it back with a loan, but you're giving yourself the loan, and the interest is actually lower. If you do it that way, then you say, "Hey, I want to go to the loan and actually take a bank." Now you got to run your credit and do all that. It keeps you free. Another thing, I know cars right now are expensive. Right? Cars are expensive. I went and looked at one. I wanted it. Um, they told me the number. I called my guy. Said, "Hey, I need this mutual fund at this price because there's no way I'm finna give them this money for a car not to drive around and look clean when I could be putting that money up." Because I did the math. I said, "Okay, if I take this money let's say I take $1,200 a month, right? That's $14,400 a year. I take that money, I multiply times 7, right? That gives me over 100,000. But I know that that money at 20% is gonna double. Or at 10% is gonna double every 7 years. So I just gave myself $200,000. If I continuously dump that money in it in 7 years, why would I go buy a car that's going to depreciate? That doesn't make sense. It don't make sense. And people don't understand that part because they be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, listen, just because you don't own a house right now, you can still build on the other things. Like you can still build on that because guess what? Let's say you decide to buy your house. The government will let you take out $10,000 out your IRA, not taxable towards the purchase of your home. They'll let you do that. So you borrow the money from yourself to use it to buy your house, right? It's just that simple. Now, if you want to get into precious metals and things like that, I know people that they're now starting to do like tangible, I mean, commodities. So they'll invest in baseball cards. They'll invest in gold and silver and things like that. That's all part of your wealth strategy. It's all part of building your wealth strategy. But a lot of times people don't understand that, and so they'll say, "Well, listen, I'm not going to invest X amount of dollars into this because I need that money for my check because I need spending. I need spending cash. I need to do this. I need to do that." But no, you need to like put that money to the side so you can really grow it, and then once you grow it, you have leverage to do whatever you want to do. Right? You retire from one job, and then you get your social security, and then you got money that's paying you out every month. Like you pretty much you comfortable at that point. Also, side hustle. I believe everybody should have at least one side hustle. I don't care what it is. Like if it's something that you're interested in, have a side hustle because that side hustle is going to help you build your retirement fund. It's going to help you build your retirement. Actually, if you do it right, it's going to replace your job. I mean, think about it. Like you could have a job pay you $80,000 a year. You can make 80,000 in 10 months, right? If you have it, you can. And I'm not saying that if you don't have a side hustle, like you can't make sure your money is good. Like you can definitely make sure your money is good. Just on a regular job. I know people who, they didn't make a bunch of money, but they have a bunch of money because they knew how to make that money work for them.
Well, here I'm gonna stop you right there. So, Stephanie, we looked at how present day finances, how Nick is saying about the present day finances, and how we can make that money and what to do with the money. Uh, Whenever we look at the effect of purchasing a home buying, but when we look at this process as far as generational wise, do you why do you think this information wasn't or isn't being taught in the homes right now?
Well, the topic of finances is a courageous conversation to have. I'm just going to give some stats. So, as of 2019, the median household income was roughly 62,000. Okay, and a dual income household earned an average between 72 and 80,000. And only 9% of Americans are earning $100,000 or more a year. Okay, and so like a family of 4 residing in an area like San Francisco, they can earn like $105,000 or more a year, but they would still qualify for Section 8 housing. Okay, so I give these stats just to say, like, we're broke. Most of us are broke, right? Looking at those numbers, right? So the current state of the economy hasn't helped in supporting much of our, working families. And a lot of us working families have a very pessimistic view of like home ownership. We don't really clearly understand. We get caught up in these thought traps of catastrophizing and all or nothing or over generalizing the process to home ownership and accumulating resources for generational wealth. So finances in the home are often discussed as we're trying to make ends meet. We're just getting by, the bare necessities, paycheck to paycheck. So how many of us can actually sit and talk to our kids or teach our kids about generational wealth, creating budgets, living within your means, when yet we haven't mastered the art of finances. You know, some of us don't know these basic life skills, right? In managing our money. So I think, that's where that comes from, where we can't have those conversations because we really don't have the education, we don't have the knowledge, we can't talk on it.
So, so now we finna really get down. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts of the show right here today. And I'm gonna ask all y'all this miracle question, and I'll let y'all answer. And I'll start with you, Andrella. What can we as a whole uh, do to educate? Well, yeah. Well, the second question is going. How can we educate ourselves about that? But the first question is, let's go back in the history and the reason why we're in the predicament that we're in now. Do you have any
Um,
thoughts on?
I definitely do. One of the reasons why I do what I do is because I come from a family where I know firsthand that typically one generation will make the wealth and it's lost the next generation. If you study wealthy families in America, there's only a few families where wealth has been sustained for over 100 years, right? I come from a family where wealth was made in one generation and it was lost the very next generation, right? Sometimes it's a matter of, you know, if you look back a couple generations ago, people weren't even taught to express their thoughts and feelings. So like Stephanie was talking about being uncomfortable. How can people talk about what's uncomfortable when the culture in the home is to not talk about anything, right?
Mhm.
So we're now in a state of, for our generation, our age group, there's been an incredible awakening that's happened with the internet because now information is at the touch of a finger, at the touch of a couple keystrokes, right? And so when people mirror or match that with, if there's anything that you want for yourself, I don't care what it is. If you want to learn how to do whatever it is, you figure it out. Well, when it comes down to creating that wealth and teaching your children and your families how to maintain it, you also just got to figure it out. Like you got to get down to the muscle and say, well, you know what? I know what my family deserves, and so I'm going to do the work, create the wealth, find out about how to start an IRA. Like those are things that I've had to do because my father and my mother, they honestly just couldn't give it to me. My grandmother had it on one side, right? But they left the planet. They died before they had a chance to teach it to my father because they both died at a young age for him. And so if you look at certain communities, they actually teach wealth, they teach discipline, they teach family business, they teach moral discipline starting at a very young age, so that as people get into the teenage years, some of those finance things on how to learn what to do, it seems kind of seamless because it's all they know. Having those uncomfortable conversations. You know, I I watched my brother Nick here talk to his daughter about investments, right? And I remember when my son was born, I had someone say, "Hey, listen, for Christmas, I want to gift him some stocks. Get him a leather bound notebook, and you use that to document his stocks. And then you teach him about stocks. This is the first year he was born. He was 4 months old at the time. And he was like, listen, you continue to have these conversations with your child. Show him online how his money is working for him. Show him in the book, in his leather bound book, what's going on. And then by the time he's, a teenager, he'll be able to understand and start to do them for himself. By the time he's before he's even 10, he's gonna be, wanting to learn more and do it himself. So it's just a matter of getting out of our own emotional way and figuring out how to make it work because there's so many different ways that people are creating and maintaining wealth right now. Like it's unbelievable. It's never been seen before.
Nick, I give you the same question. Whenever we talking about generational wealth, then what is the history of, or what do you think is one of the issues that we have here?
All right. So if you look at black wealth accumulation after slavery during the Reconstruction period, like black folks actually were, they actually were getting out and getting it. And we're talking about even when the odds were stacked against them. I know for a long time, like in the South, there was a lot of sharecroppers who they worked off on their land. They actually they paid for that land and basically with their off their backs. Um, in the cities, um, moving into the 20th century, redlining was a big thing in our community where banks, if you lived in a certain area, banks just would not lend to you, right? So we never really had the infrastructure, and the infrastructure that we did create and build, those infrastructures were destroyed. I ain't gonna even, let's not even sugarcoat it. They were destroyed. So home ownership is one of those things where it's like the gap is so big because most of our people did own homes, and the people that did own homes, you know, they own them based on the benefit of somebody else before they're like Andrella was saying that generation before got the house and then they passed it down. A lot of times when finances are not discussed at home, it's really because nobody know. Now, no disrespect to anyone. Everything is essential in your upbringing. So, like me, for example, I was raised in a church. My mom made sure we went to church every Sunday. I was in the choir. I was an usher. You know what I mean? I wish, and there's nothing wrong with that. I turned out to be a good kid, man. She kept me where I needed to be, right? She was always upside my head, made sure I was straight. So I never would be, you know, I'd never be embarrassed about that um but when it came to like I saw my mom like busting her butt to provide the necessities, right? I wish somebody would have came and just said, hey, listen, here's a book. If you don't believe me, here's a book on wealth building strategies. Everybody want to fit in. That's another problem that we have. Everybody's too cool for school. Everybody want to fit in. The knowledge is out there. Someone's already created the wealth and they've written it down. It's not like you have to go, like you literally could pick up your phone. You could take your phone and you can type in finance and investing. There's somebody that'll teach you how to read a balance sheet. They'll teach you about stocks. They'll teach you about ETFs. They'll teach you about mutual funds. They'll teach you options. They'll show you Forex. Like all this information is literally at your fingertips. So, and with that, and with it being at your fingertips, because we have access to it, we should be actually utilizing that, right? Even if you're the first, I don't care if you have to put up $50 a month. You say, listen, I'm gonna start with $50 a month because that's what I started with. I started because a senior chief, and I was a recruit. I was in Great Lakes, and it was a senior chief. I was talking to him. I was checking out. He said, "Listen, uh, Fireman Hughes, this is what you need to do. You start your. This is before TSP. Like these new sailors, they get into the bag. But he said, look, start with $50 every time you when you're done paying for your GI Bill. When you make E2, whatever that bonus is, you add to it, right? When you make E3, whatever's on it, you add to it. That's how I essentially learned how to save. So I had to make decisions because I really wasn't making no money. So I was like, look, do I buy this or do I do that, right? And if I wanted to save some money, I would have to save it. It would go in an allotment, and I just have to work with what I had. So I would say that hey, information is at your fingertips. Everybody has access to it. There are literally podcasts that's talking about money. They bring on specialists. Like you don't have to. It's just to get the information. You want to get the information, see what works for you, and then you make your decision, and then you move forward. I think that it should be taught in schools. Most of the information is not taught in schools because for whatever reason, it's not taught. Um, I know some nonprofits. I know there was a nonprofit that Angela was working with, and they was bringing entrepreneurship into the schools. I'll now let her speak on that. But when it comes to finance, it's pretty much the basics. I didn't learn how to balance a checkbook. I know that sounds old, but I didn't learn how to balance a checkbook until I went to the Navy. I didn't know how to do that stuff. Um, I couldn't tell you how to read a bank statement. So I came into the Navy. I didn't know. So I had to learn. I had to learn on the fly. A lot of us did because that was
You
something
still
just
got
wasn't
the
taught.
information though, right?
Yeah, but my mom didn't write checks. Like well, I ain't no disrespect to my mom, but she didn't write checks. Let's say that. She didn't write checks. She always had cash. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what her bank account and stuff looked like. I don't know what that stuff looked like. I just know that the picture that was presented to me was like, hey, this is where we at, and then this is what it is. So like my kids, I always tell my kids, like, y'all don't know how lucky y'all are. Like y'all don't have to go to bed hungry. You're not thinking about, y'all don't even care about where y'all next meal coming. Y'all don't know if the internet getting ready to get shut off or not. Y'all walk around here like whatever. And you know what? And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. That's a good thing because that's, as parents, that's what we're supposed to do. But I'd be wrong if if I don't at least provide them with some framework, right? And that's the part about the adults. We have to provide ourselves with a framework to be able to teach them to get them started. Even if we're not where we need to be financially, we need to make sure they have a head start. And that's why I said last week, don't send your black boys into um don't send your don't black boys out into the world, if they're not prepared. Because this is one of the things that they're gonna get hit with. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
You have a question, Maureen?
Yeah,
One
somebody
thing
they haven't heard it yet is the monthly budget. So, we're talking about the different wealth strategies and stuff like that. But as far as the budget go, and that was one of the things I was going to allude to a little bit later on because we were sitting up there talking about purchasing homes. But Nick alluded to saying that all right, then we got this, we're purchasing this home, but I also want to pull up in this Porsche. I want to put that. That's gonna be the first thing I put in my garage. So, do I go and get this Porsche? I'm looking at the bank. The bank say they gonna give me 250,000 for this house, but I also know this Porsche right here is 100,000. So do I go out there and get both of them at the same time? And then so that monthly budget is where it's gonna come in to say, can you even afford it? So Andrella, have you ever seen that in your while you was working with a client?
Yep, actually, I have. You'd be amazed at how many people are income rich, and because their debt to income ratio is so high because of the lifestyle they live, they can't get a house. They can't get qualified for it. Um, I know for me, I do believe in budgeting. Nick gave me some great advice, right? He's also a good mentor for me. He's been in real estate a little bit longer, right? But one of the things that he taught me was to make sure that my buyers are using a budget, right? One of the things about NACA programs is they actually teach um, financial literacy. And so they make sure that people have a budget, they've been managing their budget for a while, and that they're not being financially irresponsible, right? So when it comes down to buying a home, you definitely have to understand where your money is going. Somebody made the comment earlier about if you need to know where your money is going, just look around the house, it's there. Your budget is going to tell it all. Like once you sit down and you write down what's coming in, what's going out, down to everything that you spend, like a bank statement, you'll realize that you might can afford more than you can if you learn to respect your dollar more. And the best way to respect it is be honest and clear about what you're dealing with.
On a life coach's side, and plus being in the military, I used to sit down with a lot of sailors and talk about budgets, and we would, I provide a sheet to them and say, okay, then I want you to go through this, and I want you to put exactly how much money you're spending on all these different things. And I think Nick mentioned last week after the show, he was like, man, I had like 5 or 6 different accounts that I'm still paying on, and I don't use them. So we're looking at the Disney's, all these other little small different accounts that it's $2 to $3 or $5 or $10 here that you probably not using them, and then sometimes you just forget that you even have them. So whenever we start looking at that money that's just being thrown and tossed out of there, it's the same thing, and that's what that's why that budget is so important. I know, like I said, dealing with a few people, they always come in and they be like, "Oh well, it's a family of 4 people," and then I would say, "Well, how much do you spend in grocery?" "Oh, we spend $100 a month." How do you spend $100 a
impossible,
month in groceries
impossible,
for 4 people? And you go,
impossible.
impossible. But that's what they are
Meat
saying.
is expensive.
I, I just went to Sam's Club and spent $300, and that was just in meat. Now, I
Easy.
mean, right now, and then I'll be like, well, you know what? I think I'm gonna go and become meatless. But then I look at vegetables and they just as expensive.
If they fresh,
More.
they're expensive. Right there,
So
yeah.
and then so if we ain't talking about Starbucks, and we ain't talking about all the extra little small things. We ain't talking about none of that. We just talking about the food itself coming into the house. So whatever you can't even be honest about the money that you spend on a monthly basis, it's kind of hard. And we talking about this generational thing. It's kind of hard to say, here, let me sit my kids down and say, hey, you know what? Mommy, daddy, we only have like $500 at the end of the month. And out of that, we paid all our bills and we have $500 at the end of the month. I understand that you want this right here and you want to go over here and you want to do this, but this is what we have. And we still haven't saved anything yet on top of that. So to have those conversations is, yes, it's difficult. And
All right.
just like I was mentioning, most of the time, whenever you do have those conversations, that's the conversation it is. How we can't afford something instead of saying this is the reason why we are at this point right here.
All right, I'm about to give you the foolproof. Here's the foolproof plan right here.
Go
I'm
for it.
about to give it to y'all. Here's the game right here. Right,
You
number
you gonna
one.
you gonna charge the listeners for this?
Nah, it's free. It's free. I
Okay, then
promise.
free
Free
Number
game.
one.
game, free game, free game, free
Number
game.
one. Number one. Right. Pay yourself first. Put your savings or put your investment and your retirement on auto. I don't care what it is. If it's 20, if you can't save $10, you can't save $1,000. It's just what it is. So get yourself in the habit of just saving something. If it's start with $10. It sounds crazy, but just start with $10, right? You could do an IRA. They want a minimum of $50, but hey, if you could do $50, fine. But just start with $10. In 66 days, I promise you, you will be so amazed. Like, you know what? I cannot save $1. You're gonna pick that up like, nah. You're gonna want to buy this. You're gonna be like, nah. I'm gonna put that in my retirement account, right? Number two, here's how this is what your budget should look like. Before you start your budget, go to your bank or go online to your bank, print it out. Print out 90 days worth of bank statements. Print them. Do not try to look at them on the computer. You're gonna miss something. Print them out. And I want you to go through, right? First, I want you to circle, get you some highlighters, right? I got grease pencils and stuff, right? I got these, right? One thing for my board and two is for because we do a budget too, right? So look, take a color. Okay. If it's the water bill, boom. You don't gotta do this, but this is what we do. Water bill, okay, light bill, right? All of this is child care, right? And then when you're done marking it up, I want you to look and see the Starbucks, the movies. You went to McDonald's, you went over here to Wendy's, you went down here to Lowe's for something you probably didn't need. You went over here and bought some hair. Like I want you to look and I want you to see. I'm being straight up. Listen, I want you to see. You're gonna see all your money, all the subscriptions. Like I was paying for a Netflix subscription for like 4 years. I'm like, I ain't even using that. Like I literally was like, yo, I've given them. I got mad. Because I'm like, yo, I gave them almost $1,000 because I'm not paying attention to my money, right? So once you do that, now you're gonna know where your money is at. Now you're like, dang, I spent this, I spent that, I did this, I did that. Okay, now we always talk about 3 to 6 months of money, right? Okay, fine. I know your kid's gonna need stuff, right? They're gonna need that is part of your 20% too. So if your kid needs shoes, it's part of your 20%. If your kid need clothes, that's part of your 20%. Right? You're gonna know that, right? But you're gonna know that if you're gonna buy that stuff, like I hear your baby, your feet get too big. Okay, look, I gotta go get them some shoes, or I gotta get them some shoes, right? So once you do that, if you take the $10 that you're putting away for savings, you take $50, right? And you put it in your IRA account or whatever. Or if you just got an automatic payment, even better. If you got a 401k and you maximizing that, or you're just started getting it going, you good, right? But then you take that $60 and you put it in your savings because that's gonna be your emergency. Something comes up, you need some gas at the end of the month. But the objective is to save as much money as you can in there. Now, your tax money is coming up because I know some of y'all got your tax money and some of y'all didn't. Don't spend all your tax money trying to be fresh. Put
Nick,
some of that money.
Nick,
Hush. Put
Nick.
hush.
I
If you
need
don't have,
rims.
listen. If you're not investing in the IRA, right? If you have your 401k once again or a TSP once again, hey, maximize that, right? But you want to make sure you can go spend some money on yourself because the government they just saying, hey, you gave us too much money, we're gonna give you some money back. That's all they saying, right? You take some money, you throw it back over to your savings because remember, this is your emergency. This is your 3 to 6 months. Hey, if anything happened, I can pay my rent, I can pay my car note, I can pay my utilities. That's what that money's for, right? And you gotta have the discipline to be able to look at the money and say, I ain't gonna touch it. If you could build that habit, I promise you, in a year you'll look back, you'll be like, damn, I can't believe I saved X amount of dollars. Because that $50 turns into $100. That $100 turns into $200. That $200 turns into $400. That $400 turns into 800. 800 turns into 16. 16 turns to 32. Y'all see where I'm going with this? Like you have to train your brain to save, right? To invest. The reason why money is everybody loves the market is because it compounds. So just because you put money into it and they're investing it, it's compounding. That's why I said, hey, in 7.5 years, I'll have over 200 in that account, even though I only put 100 in, I'm gonna get 100 because it's gonna compound and double. That's it. That's the trick. And I'm gonna still live my life, buy my sneakers, do what I want to do. That's the
Okay,
trick.
so Stephanie, we're gonna go back to this generational thing here.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that Nick just said, as far as generational go, and I'm gonna say the trauma-ridden people that we are. Why do you think that's? Why do you think people overlook this?
Why do they think? Why do they overlook it?
Yeah.
I think at this point now, it's a remain broke. You know what I'm saying? It's a choice because we are not utilizing the resources. The resources are there. We have to funnel into the resources, right? So if we're not actively listening to like Andrella and Nicholas, we're choosing not to be proactive. At this point, we're just reactive, right? Just giving a response. So at this point, it's a choice
I think sometimes it's hard for people to
for a lot of us
also.
because we're making that choice to feed into this information. You were saying, Andrella?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it was a lag on my side. I didn't realize you were still talking. I apologize. I think sometimes people struggle with the picture of possibility. You know, sometimes people can only believe what they can see out their front door, and if they've never been personally exposed to see that, you know what, I can be whatever I want to be. I can go from here, what I've lived in all my life, and be a homeowner. Like I was talking to like here down in South Carolina, they had done away with the program where they had a program, it's coming back, but you can use your Section 8 income to purchase a house.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal program, right? They did away with it. It's in the process of coming back. They're working on all the guidelines right now, right? But I was talking to a
Absolutely.
counselor, and she has clients where it's a daughter, a mother, and a grandmother, not all in the same house, but three generations still on public housing. Sometimes it's people don't understand or they've never seen the picture of possibility to really realize, like, hey, I see this stuff online, but this doesn't have to be my story for the rest of my life. You know, Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok and all of this stuff, that's bringing a lot more of this stuff, to the front page. And so because of sensationalism and people are buying into the hype, a lot of people are buying out of being broke because they are starting to believe in ways that they never believed before. And sometimes it's just lack of exposure.
And
And
that's
one of the things that you did mention is like I understand what Nick was saying and everything, but whenever I'm putting this money in the bank, I don't see it. And sometimes, like how Andrella was saying it, you don't see any the possibility of it. So if I don't see this money growing, even though I'm putting this money away, I'm seeing $50 go out of my hand to somewhere else, and yes, it's compounding, it's growing, but people in their visualization don't see it, so they just be like, "Oh, well, I'm just wasting my money and I'm wasting my time," instead of just letting it grow. And and I think that's one of the issues that we have whenever we sit up here looking at this stuff. It's just like, okay, then yes, let it be, let it sit where it needs to be at. You don't need to have your hands on everything. And I guess that goes back to the old days whenever people used to put the money in the mattress because they say they don't trust stuff.
I
Let me
don't
let me
trust bank.
put it on the bed. Let me put it here. Let me put it there. Your money ain't gonna grow right there.
It's
So
an issue of instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
yeah,
You know,
I went through years of my life where I didn't even have an ATM card because when I was like as a nuke, right? And so I was a nuclear engineer, Stephanie, and in that community we get big bonuses. And I was young, didn't have a
They all
didn't
do.
have a husband and kids, so it was just me. I used to send a lot of money home to take care of my family, but I had big bonuses, and so granted, military paycheck wasn't the best, when I was early in my career, but I did have sometimes large sums of money. And so I had an uncle that had told me um, at one point, he said, "Listen, sweetie, if you can't get comfortable with who you are in your relationship with money, you're never going to save how you need to save." He said, "Get rid of your ATM card." He said, "If it makes you feel better, freeze it and stick it in the freezer." So you got to see it to make sure that you're clear on what it is that you're trying to do. Sometimes we don't get honest with ourselves about our relationship with our finances and our goals. And so we don't take the necessary steps that we need to make. If you don't need to have an ATM card, don't, if you know that you're going to swipe and you don't have the discipline, guess what? Leave that card home. Don't bring it with you everywhere you go. Because if you know you're
Get
going
rid
to
of it.
get weak when you go to the mall or want to get these sneakers, but you're trying to buy like I had a client, y'all listen. I had a client that was like, "Please tell me why I did X, Y, Z." And if I could have, I would have choke slammed her. She's one of my closest friends. But it's like you gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta be very clear with your relationship with money and your decision making. And then you try to figure out ways on how to guide yourself properly based on that. But it all starts with being honest. I think you asked me that last week. Like being honest with who you are in your relationship.
and I think sometimes we don't understand what honesty is with ourselves because nobody's ever told us what that looked like. You know,
modeled
Mm,
it for us.
yeah,
Mm.
that is true. Oh, another thing I want to add this. After you buy your house, right? Even if you don't have this, but this is very important, especially for the homeowners, you have to protect your income. What I mean by that is if you die, right? If you don't come home, right? Can your house still stand and your kids will be okay, your family will be okay if you don't come home? This is important because I had this conversation like 3, 4 years ago, and I was like, that don't make sense. But I was like, oh, I got my military, I got my SGLI's 400,000. But I what I realized was that I was underinsured. So by me being underinsured, there was a chance that my wife, if something was to happen to me, right? I don't bring that income home. There was a chance that my wife may not have been able to keep the house, which she made good money, but it would have been hard for her. You know what I mean? Maybe to be able to, she probably would say, "Listen, I'm going to sell this house to downsize because this is just too much for me to handle." So if you are married, and it's an important conversation to have as well. You need to talk about protecting your income with life insurance. That's why I didn't mention it, but you have to because what'll happen is, and it has happened in my neighborhood. I have a neighbor who is about to lose her house because her husband passed away. She can't keep it, and her name's not on it, and so now she's going to lose her house. So you got to be careful with that. Um, you have to be very, very careful with that. make sure that you stay income protected. Protect your income. Make sure your kids at least get through school. Um, it should be enough for your spouse to be able to continue on without you in the event that you pass away. It's very
Even if you're
important.
not, even if you're not married, especially for children. Like I'm a single mom, right? So I have to
Absolutely.
make sure that my insurance is going to cover the house because I still want my children to have some place to live, right? I don't want them to lose the house, but I want them to keep that. And then also maintain if I don't come home, right? So, very important conversation. In addition to that, make sure that you update your will.
Thank you, Jesus.
Make
That
sure you
too.
update your will. I feel like we got to talk some more, guys. Like, there's so Nick was talking about how sharecroppers and stuff like that down here in the South, we're struggling with heirs property. Heirs
Talk about
property
it.
is people are losing properties that have been in their families for generations and generations. And people are coming in and saying, "Hey, let me take that problem off your hands. Let
And
me
they'll
buy this land from you." And then they go and they put um, these nice, beautiful, huge hotels, right? But they lease the land to the hotel for 20 years, and everybody wins except for the family. Can you
Yep.
imagine how many rough decisions that family had to make, or how much crop work that family had to do in order to even build that in the first place, right? So, um, a lot of people because they don't update their will are losing out on real estate big time because it ends up being property of the state, and then they have to fight about it in court. Get your life insurance, build your wealth, and while you're building your wealth, regardless of whether or not you're at the beginning level, high level, middle level, no matter where you are, get insured so that if you don't come home, your family doesn't have to deal with grieving and losing everything that they now know, right? And then make sure you get a will to cover you, to cover yourself. A will is your final love letter to your family. That's the biggest, that and insurance, those are the two biggest things that you can do to make sure that your family is okay when you close your eyes at the end of this day.
yeah, that or trust. Like you
Yep.
can do a
Yep.
trust or a will. Like either one. You know, I would say I recommend you talk to a lawyer, see which one will work best for you. But you definitely have to protect your assets because another story. My wife, I don't want to put her on blast. I love you, baby, but she's going through some things right now too because she is the the beneficiary of her brother, and it's just been one thing after another. It's so hard to get people to do things when you don't have anything written and in place. I promise you, like you're already grieving, and then this is the added thing onto that emotion. Like some people just give up. They just be like, I don't want to deal with it. You have to protect yourself. So build the wealth, protect it. Buy a house. It doesn't matter if you own a house or not. You have to protect what you've already started. And here's another thing. We were talking about books. I know we don't have that much time, but we were talking about books. And I told a group one of the books that really helped me was called The Investing Bible by Lynn O'Shaughnessy. Um, it's basically a how to do everything. Like you want to learn about stocks, it'll teach you about stocks. It'll teach you how to read a cash flow sheet, a balance sheet. It'll show you what a 10 kilo is. Like you literally can like take the book, read it, go to Yahoo Finance and analyze. Like you want to learn about mutual funds, it'll tell you how to set them up, what companies to set them up, pros and cons, ETFs, insurance. The only thing it doesn't talk about because it's an older book is cryptocurrency. Most books are not talking about cryptocurrency at this point. Another good book is called The Automatic Millionaire, right? It's by John Bach. And John Bach was a financial advisor. And it's a funny story because he was a young financial advisor in his 20s. He had an older gentleman come up to him and say, "Hey, me and my wife want to sit down with you because I'm ready to retire." They walk into the office. The the guy says, "Hey, I'm 52 years old. I'm ready to retire." And John is like, "There's no way y'all ready to retire." So they had about $2 million worth of assets, two houses that were paid for, 600 something thousand cash, $62,000 in the bank, And John was trying to figure out like how was he able to do it because they made no more than $53,000 a year. That was the kicker. They only made 53,000. The wife was a beautician, and he worked at an electric company. And basically, they tell you exactly how they did it. It's a good book if you want to listen to it on Audible. It's on Audible. I think it's like 4 hours or something, but it's a good book. Like there's a ton of books. Like I said, the information is out there. There's a ton of books out there. The Simple Way to Building Wealth. There's another one by J.L. Collins. There's another dope book. It just gives you a breakdown of the simple things. Like none of this stuff is complicated. It's just being consistent, you know what I mean, and then just going for it. Being consistent and going for it. Um, yeah, I mean, that's all. I mean, just whatever y'all do, just make sure y'all be great at it. Um, please, please, we don't owe it to anybody. You owe it to your family. Make sure that you handle your business. That's
Well,
all I got.
Nick and Andrella, hey, thank y'all for blessing us with y'all presence and knowledge again today. And I hope this information was well received and will be put into action more than anything. The old saying is, we can always know a lot of information, but if we ain't putting it in action, it's dead. So
Facts.
if you like any assistance, trying to better your finances, relationships, or maybe just more positive outcome, sign up. You can come and talk to me. You can go to my website, speaktomyheartlifecoach.com, sign up for a 30-minute consultation, and we can go over this. And also, Nick had put out a couple of books. If you need those books, those titles again, shoot me an email. You can go to the website and shoot an email to me, and I'll get that information there to you as well. So I just want to let y'all have y'all some give y'all some parting words. So Nick, you got any parting words for everybody?
Stay blessed.
Stay blessed. Right on, Miss Andrew.
Get educated, stay dis. Angela Pache, you're right. You're right. Get educated, stay disciplined, stay focused.
Miss Stephanie.
I just want to thank Nick and Andrella. They have really blessed my spirit. They have given me some tidbits that I will be utilizing. So I appreciate the two of you. Thank you for this platform, Anthony. So, yeah.
All right. So with that being said, I will leave you with this: build something that outlives you. Whenever we talk about generational wealth, that's all we're trying to say. And Kenneth Marvin Gray Pearson stated, when people speak on generational wealth, they focus on money. Wealth of knowledge is just as important. What's the use of having the money if you don't know how to invest it?
Right.
Plain and simple.
Facts.
So, with that being said, this has been another edition to the Dorcha Expansion webcast. And guess what, y'all? We out of here. Holla at you.
Yeah.